Hi everybody and welcome to Observing with Webb, where the armchair astronomer figures out what they're looking at, why it's so cool, and what they should check out next. Don't forget to check out my Podbean page, mrwebb.podbean.com, my YouTube channel and Twitter feed, which are MRWEBBPV as the username, and also if you get your podcast through Stitcher, you can get this in an audio form there. June is coming up. We've got some warm nights. We'll be able to check out Jupiter and Saturn really well. Venus is also showing up in the mornings. We've got the shortest night of the year and also a pretty cool double shadow transit on Jupiter. So let me start off with the planets, since that was one of the first things I noticed was really cool about astronomy, is that, hey, there's something really bright up there. What is that? So here we go. First of all, Mercury and Mars we will not be able to see this month. Mars is actually on the opposite side of the sun, and Mercury is just not visible. I forget if it's behind or in front, but it doesn't matter. Can't see it. But let's talk about some of these bright things. Now, what you'll notice is I have this set up for June 1st after like 9:30. So when it finally gets dark, at least around me. And what you'll notice is that Jupiter's up here. That's going to be super bright. And it's actually in the constellation of Virgo, which is mostly made up of dimmer stars. So Jupiter's really going to pop out. And what you'll notice is that Jupiter is about halfway up the sky. And what's going to happen is, let me fast forward time a little bit. Okay, so 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., about 2:30 in the morning is when Jupiter will actually set. So if you want to see Jupiter, get out there before 2:30 or actually 1:30 by the end of the month. Okay. Now, another way you can find Jupiter, let me get up here. If you can find the Big Dipper in the north, see it up here? You can take that arc of the handle and follow the arc to Arcturus, which is the brightest star in Bodes, and then you speed on to Spica, which is this bright star, and Jupiter's going to be to the right, and Jupiter's going to be brighter than Spica, this brightest star in Virgo. So you can use that to help you find it as well. But anyway, that's what we got for Jupiter. Now, also really cool about Jupiter, you got to look up. They just got some of the Juno pictures back. It is just phenomenal, those pictures. And you can really see it up close, much better than even this. But if you have a telescope, you can see the cloud bands, maybe even the giant red spot, or the big red spot. And you can see it's kind of hard to see on here, but you can see 4 of the moons around Jupiter. And that's really neat to take a look at. Okay, but yeah, go find those Juno, Juno pictures. All right, so that's Jupiter. Let's see. Also, look over here. We've got Saturn. Let me rewind the clock a little bit that night. It's actually rising right around sunset, which is great. It's going to be in the southeast over here. And what's going to happen is it's going to rise up and it's going to move toward the south. And it's going to be highest right about there. And that's only about, I believe, 30 degrees or so. Yep, about 27, 30 degrees above the horizon there. And it's actually going to be right about there around sunrise. Okay, so it's kind of visible between sunset and sunrise. Now, Saturn's cool to look at right now because if we zoom in, the rings are at a very cool angle toward us. I don't know if it's exactly maximum angle, but pretty darn close. But that's looking really good. Okay. See if you can find the gaps. Even here, it's pretty easy to see at least one gap right in the middle here. Okay. Okay, let me back out from Saturn. So again, Saturn, you'll have to get out after dark, and it should be out pretty much all night. And then lastly, you've got Venus. And now you notice we're at right about 4 a.m. in the beginning of the month right now, and you'll see Venus is just peeking out, whatever. But it's going to be rising up in the morning off in the east, and it might be about 20 degrees high at sunrise. You might not be able to see it right at sunrise, right at 5:30. It might be too bright. It'll be pretty dim at that point compared to the background of the sky. But if you go out around 5, it should be real easy to see anytime before that. So, and that's happening all month. Venus is a great one to check out in the morning if you're up before 5 a.m. So, anyway, so again, we've got Venus in the morning, Saturn throughout the night, and Jupiter toward the beginning almost throughout the night. And that's how our planets are working for the month. All right, let me move on to the events of the month. Okay, now the first, let's go back to June 1st. Oh, we just have to rewind time a little bit. Okay, June 1st, you'll notice that we have a first quarter moon up there. Right half is lit up. You can see it from about midnight and into the morning. Or sorry, it's visible until midnight. My fault. And then we're going to have a nice close encounter between the moon and Jupiter. So again, if you can't find Jupiter that easily, this would be a good time to look. You can see the moon and Jupiter are actually pretty close together right there. You won't be able to pick both of them up in binoculars, I don't think, but they are pretty darn close. So if you have trouble finding Jupiter, try to find it on the 3rd. The other cool thing about Jupiter is that on the 3rd, okay, the night of the 3rd, if you zoom in, if you get your telescope out and look at Jupiter, you'll notice that here's Io, and the sun is casting a shadow, or Io is casting a shadow, and as time goes by, starting at 10:22 p.m. that night, you'll start seeing Io and Ganymede both projecting shadows on Jupiter all the way to about 12:20 or 12:22 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And the cool thing is that they are traveling. I'm going backwards in time now, and forwards in time. You'll notice that Ganymede is a bit bigger of a shadow, but it's a bit fuzzier, and it's also traveling a little bit more slowly compared to Io. Io is a bit closer to Jupiter. That's why it's got a sharper shadow, and it's also orbiting more quickly around it as well. So that's something that it's pretty easy to see. Even if you just have binoculars, you should be able to at least see the shadows there. All right, let's zoom back out, and nothing really happens for the next couple of nights. If we go all the way to the 9th, you'll see that we have a full moon, and that's also the night when Saturn and the moon are closest together. You won't really see this galaxy part back here, but you'll see the moon and Saturn are about 2 degrees apart. Saturn's 2 degrees down and to the right. So it's pretty close. So if you're having trouble finding Saturn, look at that time. And let's see, they're going to move through or toward the west, toward the south, toward the west throughout the night. Okay, so if you want to check out the moon, you're going to have to get up a little bit later each night because it's getting closer and closer to the horizon. And we've got our last quarter moon on the 17th. That's when the left half is lit up. And you can see it from midnight all the way into the morning. And let's see. Oh, looks like Venus is over here. So let's follow the travels of the moon. Let's go. Boop, doop, doop. Aha, there we go. We've got the 20th and the 21st. We've got a nice close encounter between Venus and the moon. Now let me go to 5 a.m. You'll notice that there's a nice thin crescent moon over here, and Venus is over here on the left. You'll also notice that, let's see, that's about 7 degrees off. And then on the next morning, on the 21st, you'll notice that the moon will be a thinner crescent, okay, and it'll be lower. Also, I believe about 7 degrees below Venus. So less than a fist width held at arm's length. And yeah, so that actually brings us to the 21st, which is the day of our summer solstice, which is the day when the sun stops getting higher at noon. Well, every day at noon, it's usually a little bit higher in the sky leading up to June 21st. Now it stops, solstice, stis meaning stop, sol meaning sun, and now it's actually going to get a little bit lower. So the sun is actually going to get a little lower in the sky on average each day. But it's the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere and the shortest night. And then as you'll notice, the moon keeps getting smaller and smaller. So the next logical day is the new moon on the 24th. Also this month, we get a pretty good look at a second close encounter between Jupiter and the Moon. You'll notice that I have this set up for June 30th. We've got the Moon and Jupiter being in pretty close quarters, about 4 degrees apart from each other on the night of the 30th. And it looks like that's about a first quarter moon, which might be that day. I think it's actually the next day is technically first quarter. And that's it for the events for the month. Let's quick do a couple of constellations. I thought it might be a good idea to look at the summer constellations, since those are coming in pretty nicely. So typically what we look at for summer constellations would be what's known as the summer triangle. Now, if you're looking east or southeast in June, okay, you'll start seeing these big ones up here. Okay, now you'll see 3 very bright stars up here. Okay, you've got, zoom is a little odd here, but you've got Cygnus. This is the brightest star, Deneb, which is the brightest star in Cygnus. You've also got a nice big bright star called Vega up here, and a big bright star down here called Altair. Those 3 bright stars, those are the 3 brightest stars in 3 summer constellations: Cygnus the Swan, Lyra the Harp, and Aquila the Eagle. Cygnus the Swan actually pretty much does look like a swan or a goose or any kind of broad-winged, long-necked bird because you got the tail over here, and you've got the wings over here, and the neck and the head over here. It's pretty neat, pretty cool constellation to see. Can be a little dim, so sometimes hard to see. Some people call it the Northern Cross. They look at this one and this one here, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stars that make up this cross. If you look up here, then you've got Lyra the Harp, which is a little parallelogram shape with a bright star up here. And if you have a good telescope, the Ring Nebula is something to look at. You might, with a good telescope, be able to see a nice little smoky ring there. If you got a really good telescope, you can get a little better. You won't actually see it in color, but it'll just be black and white for you. However, if you took a picture, you could get something like this. That's really neat about Lyra. And then Aquila the Eagle. Yeah, that doesn't look like an eagle to me either, but just go with it. You also see here, next to it is Delphinus the Dolphin right there. I like this one. I think it's pretty neat. A nice little interesting mini dipper shape sort of there, which is kind of cool. So anyway, that makes up the summer triangle, which even in the most light polluted skies, you can at least find that summer triangle as opposed to actually looking at all of the constellations. So yeah, I think I will stop there for the month. Hope you get to go outside, maybe check out Jupiter and see those moons moving across, and you know, just check out the relative coolness of Saturn and Venus in the morning. So with that, I wish you very clear, dark skies for the month of June.